In a quiet village surrounded by dry hills and forgotten fields, there lived a young boy named Arav. The land around his village had once been green and alive, but over the years, careless cutting of trees, lack of rain, and human neglect had turned it into barren soil. Cracked earth stretched endlessly, and the wind carried dust instead of the scent of flowers. People had stopped believing that anything good could grow there again. Arav was different. While others saw hopeless land, he saw untold potential. While others complained about what was lost, he wondered what could still be grown. Arav lived with his grandfather, an old farmer who had witnessed the land in its most beautiful days. Every evening, the grandfather would sit under the last remaining neem tree in the village and tell stories about forests so dense that sunlight barely touched the ground, rivers that sang as they flowed, and birds that painted the sky with their colors. One day, Arav asked softly, "Will this land ever become green again?" His grandfather smiled, his wrinkled face glowing with quiet wisdom. He picked up a small seed from his pocket and placed it in Arav's hand. "Even the smallest seed," he said, "holds the power to become a forest." Arav looked at the tiny seed resting on his palm. It seemed insignificant, fragile, almost lifeless. How could something so small change an entire land? That night, Arav couldn't sleep. The words echoed in his mind. He realized that just like the land, people too had stopped believing in small beginnings. Everyone waited for miracles, donations, government help, but no one wanted to begin with something small. The next morning, Arav woke up before sunrise, carrying a small shovel and a water bottle. He walked to an empty patch of land near the neem tree. The soil was hard, resisting his effort, but he didn't stop. His hands ached, sweat rolled down his face, yet he dug until there was enough space for the seed. He gently placed it into the soil, covered it carefully, and poured water over it. There, he whispered, "This is the beginning." Days passed. Nothing happened. People laughed when they saw Arav visiting the same spot every morning. "What are you doing?" they mocked. "You can't grow anything here. One seed won't change this land." But Arav remembered his grandfather's words. Growth, he realized, was happening beneath the surface, where eyes could not see. Weeks later, a tiny green shoot broke through the soil. It was so small that most people didn't even notice it. But for Arav it was proof that life still existed, proof that patience was powerful, proof that hope was not foolish. He protected the little plant from goats, watered it daily, and spoke to it as if it could hear him. The villagers still doubted him, but Arav didn't argue. He had learned something important. True change doesn't need approval, it needs commitment. Encouraged by the small success, Arav began collecting more seeds, fallen seeds from fruits, seeds given by traveling merchants, seeds saved for meals. Every seed felt like a promise. Every seed felt like possibility. One by one, he planted them. Some seeds didn't survive. Some plants dried up due to harsh weather. Arav felt discouraged, but he didn't quit. He understood now that failure was not the opposite of growth. It was part of it. Each failure taught him something new: where to plant, how deep to dig, when to water, and how to protect young plants from the scorching sun. Years passed. The once empty land slowly transformed. Small plants grew into bushes. Bushes grew into young trees. Birds began returning. Insects buzzed around flowers that had not bloomed in decades. The air felt lighter. The soil felt softer. People noticed. Children started playing under the shade of young trees. Farmers began planting crops nearby. noticing that the land was becoming fertile again. The same villagers who once laughed now stood in awe. "How did this happen?" they asked. Arav smiled and answered simply, "One seed at a time." His grandfather watched with pride, knowing the lesson had taken root, not just in the land, but in Arav's heart. One evening, a powerful storm hit the village. Strong winds uprooted weak plants, and heavy rain flooded parts of the land. Arav ran outside, terrified that everything he had built would be destroyed. The next morning, he walked through the fields, heart pounding. Some plants were damaged, some trees had fallen, but many stood firm. Their roots, grown deep through years of struggle, had made them strong. That day, Arav understood a deeper truth. Struggles don't destroy growth, they strengthen it. The forest was no longer just land, it was a symbol of patience, consistency, and belief in small beginnings. As Arav grew older, people from nearby villages came to learn from him. They wanted to know how to restore their land, how to bring life back to their soil, how to create change. Arav didn't give them long speeches. Instead, he handed each person a seed. "Plant this," he said. "Care for it. Be patient. Trust the process." Some were confused. Some were disappointed. They wanted big plans and fast results. But those who listened, those who planted their seeds, returned years later with stories of transformation. Arav realized then that the story of the forest was also the story of life. Every dream starts as a seed. Every success begins small. Every strong person was once weak. Every expert was once a beginner. The world celebrates forests, not seeds. It celebrates success, not effort. It celebrates results, not patience. But real growth happens quietly, underground, unseen, unnoticed, just like the seed. In his later years, Arav stood beneath the tall trees that now covered the land. The forest whispered with life. Birds sang. Leaves danced in the wind. What was once dead land had become a living miracle. Someone asked him, what was the hardest part of this journey? Arav looked around and replied, believing when nothing was visible. Another asked, what kept you going when everyone doubted you? He smiled, knowing that small things done consistently can change everything. As the sun set behind the forest, Arav placed his hand on the soil, grateful, humble, fulfilled. He had learned that greatness doesn't arrive suddenly. It grows slowly, silently, patiently, and the lesson remained clear for anyone willing to listen. Just like dreams, just like hope, just like you.